Hip-hop martyr Tupac Shakur spoke out about racism and his vision of African-American unity through his rhymes. When he died at just 25, he left a controversial legacy.
How do you sell nearly $70 million worth of albums in a single year and end up $5 million in the hole? It defies logic. Either he was terrible with money or he was just getting ripped off.
But with no will, a duplicitous record company, and a list of litigators as long as his rap sheet, the fight over Tupac's fortune would last longer than his time in the spotlight.
They were charging Tupac for houses he wasn't in, child support for kids he didn't have, and for cars he was not driving.
Against all odds, Tupac's millions continue to multiply, even though the star isn't around to spend it.
The reason why Tupac's so successful after his death is because he did not make records, he made history. There's a big difference.
It's because his music is timeless to people.
The fame, the fortune, the legacy of Tupac Shakur. Tupac Shakur was a prolific talent and a true triple threat. He acted, sang, and got in trouble with the law.
I don't know how to be responsible for what every black male did. I don't know. Yes, I am gonna say that I'm a thug. That's because I came from the gutter and I'm still here.
Through his vast musical output, Tupac spoke of the struggle of Black America, creating a legacy that can be heard in every rapper who grew up in the 90s.
It's been pretty much 2 decades since he was killed back in the 90s in Vegas. And we've seen a lot of fascinating things happen. We've seen the rise of Jay-Z. We've seen the rise of Lil Wayne, Weezy, Nicki Minaj, a whole bunch of folks. But at the same time, hip-hop has been really yearning for an artist like Tupac who could speak to the political, social issues in America very powerfully as he did, but also kept it real by talking about what was going on in the streets.
He also fueled the fire of an infamous rap rivalry that eventually led to his demise. Tupac was a player who made big money. Now, 2 decades after his death, the world of hip-hop is forever changed because of him, and he's still making millions. But money wasn't his only goal. He also wanted to give a voice to the pain of the young men who would never have his platform.
He was a defiant young man who grew up on the outside looking in and was angry. And he sought to make a statement for the rest of us. And that is, I'm here, I'm not going away. I'm going to disturb your sleep. You may take certain platitudes for granted, but I'm the walking reality that those platitudes aren't true.
This is the story of all that he left behind. Soon to be called the most influential rapper of all time, Tupac Shakur is born Lausanne Parish Crooks on June 16, 1971. Just 1 month after his mother, Black Panther activist Alice Faye Williams, is released from prison on charges of conspiracy to bomb New York City. His father, Billy Garland, also a Black Panther promoting a radical socialist agenda to fight injustice in the world, does very little to help raise his son. By the time Tupac is 5, Garland checks out of his life, and his mother marries another Panther by the name of Mutulu Shakur. Alice changes her name to Afeni, and her sons to Tupac Amuru, after the 18th century South American revolutionary who led an uprising of his people. Tupac, his older stepbrother Mopreme, and younger half-sister Sechua grow up in East Harlem in a family of activists and lawbreakers, and are often homeless.
Tupac's mom was a legend. She represented herself when she and a number of Panthers were accused of torching or blowing up some buildings. Stepfather, who the feds were leaning on and stepping on all the time, relatives in and out of the joint. So he came by his political credentials and his awareness of the world the good old-fashioned way with his mama's milk.
Though Afeni struggles with a crack addiction, she sees something special in Tupac. At 12, she enrolls him in Harlem's 127th Street Ensemble, where he has his first acting role as Travis in A Raisin in the Sun.
And one of the things he said to me when I interviewed him for Vibe magazine is that when the curtains opened, because he was the first character that was seen by the audience at that fundraiser, that it really, really, really made him appreciate and want to be a performer, because the feeling of awe he got when people were applauding for him. He said he never forgot that as a little boy.
3 years later, in 1986, the family relocates to Maryland, where Tupac attends Baltimore School for the Arts, studying acting, poetry, jazz, and ballet. There, he writes his first rap song. At 17, his family moves to Marin City, California, where Tupac attends the poetry classes of Layla Steinberg. Steinberg is so impressed with Tupac that she pushes TNT record executive Atron Gregory to hear him in 1989. Gregory is blown away by Tupac's performance. Tupac lands the position of backup dancer and roadie for hip-hop group Digital Underground, but is soon promoted to MC, debuting his rapping skills on Digital Underground's single, Same Song. Gregory takes a gamble on Tupac, shopping him around as a solo artist, but nobody's interested. Until 1991, when Gregory takes Tupac to a new label, Interscope Records. They offered Tupac a record deal with 12% royalties.
For an up-and-coming artist, 12% royalties wasn't bad, but keep in mind, he didn't have a lot of negotiating power or leverage at this point in time.
Tupac hits the studios, working day and night on his debut album about the problems faced by young black men on the streets of America. 1 month before its release, he takes one of these problems to court, filing a $10 million civil suit against the Oakland police, claiming they brutally beat him for jaywalking. It's rumored Tupac receives approximately $43,000 in settlement money, much of which goes to pay his lawyer.
He brought an action under what's called the Ku Klux Klan Act, which was passed by Congress in the wake of Reconstruction. It gave to ordinary people the right to bring an action against state actors when they violated their civil rights. In this case, he claimed his Fourth Amendment right to be free from unreasonable force was violated. The $10 million number, he was never going to get $10 million out of that. $43,000 sounds about right. Police misconduct litigation is real. It's vibrant, or it used to be until the judges sort of took it away in the last 10, 15 years, but I think Tupac was right to bring it to the cops.
On November 12, 1991, Tupac Shakur drops his debut album, Tupacalypse Now. It hits number 13 on the charts. The single, Brenda's Got a Baby, reaches number 23. Tupacalypse Now hits a nerve with young black men, so much so it becomes a key element in the defense of Ronald Ray Howard, who claims he was listening to it when he was pulled over by a state trooper in Texas for a broken headlight. Howard shot the trooper when he approached his window, and the officer later died.
I think he misplayed that. He tried to claim that somehow listening to these lyrics radicalized him or alienated him and disaffected him from police. Tupac didn't create tension between police officers and young black men. He talked about it, he showcased it, he made it art, and he took the side of young black men in a very charismatic way that made people feel empowered to challenge the police. So I think if a more radical defense would have been justification. That would have been an unpopular defense, but it would have been better than the one he waged.
Howard is convicted of the murder and executed by lethal injection in 2005. Regardless of the controversy, or perhaps because of it, Tupacalypse Now goes gold. In 1992, Tupac stars in the feature film Juice, the story of a group of teens from Harlem embarking on a life of crime. Juice rakes in more than $8 million at the box office its opening weekend. While his character in Juice revels in the violence of crime, in real life, Tupac seeks to contain gang warfare. In 1992, at the Truce Picnic in California, Tupac is instrumental in getting rival members of the notorious Crips and Bloods gangs to sign the Code of Thug Life.
He was definitely influential because music, with this genre of music and hip-hop, is word, sound, power. Understand what I'm saying? He had a lot of people following him based on where he came from, based on his stance, based on that division of East Coast, West Coast. So the West Coast was all behind Pac on that level. So it was easy to, it's pretty sexy. It was easy to seduce up and coming men to be like, this is gangster right here. This is our family right here. This is our specific community. I think it was pretty easy for him with that steamroll that he had called Death Row and the whole situation with the East Coast rivalry.
That same year, Tupac has Thug Life tattooed across his stomach. But no matter how much Tupac tries to stem the violence in his community, crime still seems to follow wherever he travels. On August 22, 1992, Tupac performs at a festival in Marin City. After the concert, while signing autographs, a confrontation occurs, and Tupac draws his Colt Mustang. The confrontation dissipates, and Tupac drops his gun. But when a member of his entourage picks it up, a bullet discharges. It shoots across 100 yards to a school playground where 6-year-old Kayid Walker Teal is riding his bike. The bullet hits the child in the head, killing him.
People were pressing at that point for criminal charges against Tupac, perhaps for murder. Murder is the intentional taking of another person's life. Usually we say it is informed by what's called specific intent. I have the conscious objective to kill somebody. That's my purpose. This clearly wasn't murder. If anything, it was an accident, and it might have supported a reckless manslaughter charge. Recklessness in the law means becoming aware that there's an unjustified risk of harm and doing something anyhow. Like this, in this case, carrying a loaded gun around in a concert. But I think the case was never charged because no case could be made. The identity of the shooter or person who handled the gun when it fired would have to be proven. My understanding is witnesses were hard to find, and no one saw anything among those who were questioned. So in the absence of the identity of the person possessing the gun when it went off, there'd be no case.
After this tragedy, Tupac barricades himself in the studio, working day and night on his next record. Then, on February 16, 1993, his second album drops. It debuts at number 24 and goes platinum. The single, Keep Your Head Up, is a call to black men to treat their women right. It peaks at number 7 on the charts and goes gold.
Keep Your Head Up is important because it really captures all of who Tupac is in one song. The political Tupac, the street Tupac, the Tupac who cared about his community, who was able to speak out about issues like war, single mothers. He was pro-choice in that song. So there's so many different things going on in one place. If there's any song that captures the essence of who Tupac was, it's Keep Your Head Up.
At just 21, Tupac Shakur is a superstar and a contradiction. A peacemaker surrounded by crime who raps about poverty in the hood as his growing fame turns him into a very, very rich man. Blowing up as a revered MC and a voice for his community, Tupac Shakur has racked up gold and platinum albums and starred in a successful film. With money rolling in, Tupac upgrades his apartment to a mansion in the wealthy LA neighborhood of Calabasas, outfitting the joint with 2 prized possessions: an enormous pool table, and a top-of-the-line big-screen TV. Friends and family flock to the house to chill by the pool and more or less move in. Far from his childhood, which was often spent homeless, Tupac now lives a life of luxury. Yet trouble is never far away from Tupac Shakur. On April 5, 1993, at a concert at Michigan State University, sound operators shut off Tupac's microphone due to obscene language. Angry, Tupac throws the $600 microphone on the floor. Rapper Chauncey Wynn, the owner of the equipment, begs Tupac not to break it. Tupac responds by swinging a baseball bat at Wynn's head, narrowly missing.
You know, I guess a couple of times when the show doesn't go the way you want it to go, you know, it evokes an emotion. So I guess that's what happened with my man, where he jumped into the audience and got a little wild. You know, I guess different artists have different ways of channeling their emotion.
Tupac is charged with assault, which carries a maximum penalty of 4 years in prison and a $2,000 fine. Bond is set at $50,000, of which Tupac posts 10%. Tupac's lawyer advises him to plead guilty to a misdemeanor in the hope that the prosecution will drop the felony assault charges. The prosecution agrees to the deal, and Tupac spends 10 days in jail.
In most jurisdictions in the United States, most of the time, that's going to get you a couple years scholarship where you're not going to worry about health care, room and board, meals, even entertainment. The state will take care of that for you. But Tupac walked away from this with a 10-day sentence. Don't know how it happened. Great piece of lawyering. A shockingly low sentence, frankly. I think sort of an insult to the criminal justice system, much though I love Tupac.
After spending a small fortune on legal fees, Tupac hopes to make the money back with his new movie, Poetic Justice. Also starring Janet Jackson, the picture grosses nearly $30 million. The soundtrack reaches number 23. Fans go wild for Tupac, and he laps it up. According to reports, many of his concerts have a riot-like atmosphere, with Tupac taunting fans from the stage. Then one day, at Pine Bluff, Arkansas, the chaos goes too far. Jacqueline McNeely is shot and paralyzed by a stray bullet at a Tupac concert. American venues get nervous about booking the star. But even violence cannot stop Tupac's unbridled popularity. In 1993, Tupac receives a letter from the parents of a terminally ill boy named Joshua, whose last wish is to meet his favorite rapper. Without a second thought, Tupac flies to Maryland to make that wish come true. Tupac pours money into his community, setting up a company called Euthanasia to help finance a center for at-risk youth, South Central LA sports teams, and a toll-free number for troubled kids.
I think he was a beacon of inspiration to his community. You see, this genre of music, hip-hop, and what it embodies, a lot of times, a lot of young men, black men, didn't have father figures around them, But when you see something so powerful, someone with a voice so powerful, it's magnetic. You see what I'm saying? And I think from that, a community can build, What I will say is through his words, and that's what we know him for the most, his words and his music. That way we don't really have to speculate too much because it's right there. He definitely was aware. He definitely had self-awareness. When you look at his albums, he definitely was aware of himself. I had knowledge of self.
To celebrate his company, Tupac gets a $30,000 gold and diamond-studded medallion made. 3 inches in diameter, the pendant features Euthanasia's muscular angel logo. From this point on, it would be seen dangling prominently around his neck. Tupac spends big on bling. Along with the medallion, he's regularly seen wearing jewel-encrusted rings, diamond earrings, and a top-of-the-line Rolex. But as always, Tupac's life has highs and lows. While in Atlanta in October 1993, his car almost hits 2 off-duty police officers and their wives as they cross the street.
One thing led to another, and before you know it, gunfire is exchanged. He shoots at these off-duty officers, they shoot back at him. He wasn't charged, and the stated reason for his not being charged is A, the officers were off-duty, B, they were so intoxicated it was probably unclear whether they had anything to say that was reliable, and C, to the degree that they said anything at all, they were shown to have lied in their police reports, and finally, D, they had themselves had stolen weapons. So if this case had been tried, it would have been a field day for a creative criminal defense lawyer because you would have put the Atlanta Police Department on trial.
This was a weapon which he had no right to have.
I'm surprised that nothing happened. He must have had an awful good lawyer. And that's a theme that emerges in Tupac's life. He's a walking advertisement for aggressive criminal defense.
But the very next month, he faces even more serious charges when he's accused of sexual assault for allegedly gang raping a 19-year-old woman with his entourage in a hotel room. But not even a rape charge can slow his meteoric career. On March 25, 1994, Tupac's next movie, Above the Rim, opens. The story of a high school basketball star and his relationship with a drug dealer, the picture grosses more than $16 million. Once again, Tupac is a hit on the big screen. One night that summer, Tupac Shakur visits New York's Capitol nightclub to forget about his legal woes. There, he spots 20-year-old Keisha Morris. Tupac is instantly smitten, but he's hesitant to draw her into the mess of his life. But Morris has already fallen in love. Tupac stays at her New York apartment during his rape trial. Though he's spending big on legal fees, Tupac showers his new love with gifts. He buys Morris a Gucci watch and a matching one for himself. He also treats himself to a $90,000 BMW 850. Shortly thereafter, Morris totals the car, so Tupac simply buys a new car to replace it. That fall, Tupac releases an album with his stepbrother and some friends. The group is called Thug Life. The album, Thug Life Volume 1, goes gold.
Tupac actually said to me in one of his interviews that Thug Life stood for the hate you gave little infants, F everybody. And so it became harder edge because by that point, Tupac was now enmeshed in California. What was going on when he started talking about Thug Life? You had Dr. Dre and Snoop Dogg who were dominating hip hop from the West Coast. You had the G-Funk sound of Warren G. And you had, Ice Cube was a big impact, and Ice-T also was a big impact on Tupac. And so he wanted to be a part of that whole kind of energy. And so he felt that his mission was to speak for all the brothers in the hoods around the country who didn't have voices, and that's what Thug Life represented.
In September 1994, Tupac presents Morris with a 42 diamond platinum ring. And while he awaits a verdict in his sexual assault trial, Tupac puts all his energy into his third solo album. But on November 30th, 1994, while in the lobby of Quad Recording Studio, he's ambushed by 3 men. They rob him of over $35,000 in cash and jewelry and shoot him 5 times in the head, hand, and groin. Tupac believes it's no random mugging and was perhaps set up by rapper Notorious B.I.G., producer Sean Puff Daddy Combs, or the duo's associate, Jimmy Henchman.
Tupac and Biggie were friends. They were very close friends. But at some point, Tupac started to say that Biggie was stealing his style and the West Coast style. And it went from Tupac and Biggie to Sean P. Diddy Combs and Suge Knight to one coast of America versus another coast of America. And people hyped it up, a lot of media hyped it up. Unfortunately, it spilled out of control.
92, I believe it was, 1992, 93. New York City, I believe the club was called Muse. It was in Manhattan. I saw Biggie and Tupac perform together, man. So I saw a bond, So to me, it was like, what hurt me personally is just to see that division happen, because the era I came up was about unity. And to see something happen where we're supposed to go forward from a hip hop perspective, go like 5 steps backwards, that kind of hurt me personally. Isn't this what we spoke about not happening?
Years after the attack, Dexter Isaac comes forward to confirm Tupac's suspicion. He admits he was paid $2,500 by henchmen to shoot Tupac. But Notorious B.I.G. claims no such involvement. He even visits the hospital to see Tupac and say as much. And he's not Tupac's only surprise visitor. After being absent for 18 years, his father arrives at his bedside. Tupac is shocked, as his mother had always told him his father was dead. The next day, Tupac receives his third guest, but this one bears bad news. His lawyer comes to tell him he's been found guilty of sexual assault and is sentenced to 1.5 to 4.5 years in prison. At just 23, unstoppable artist Tupac Shakur has had as many run-ins with the law as he's had hit albums. He's made millions, but no amount of money can keep him out of the slammer. Multi-millionaire rapper Tupac Shakur has just completed his third solo album, been shot 5 times, and found guilty of sexual assault. On February 14, 1995, he's locked up at New York's Clinton Correctional Facility. Just 1 month into his sentence, his third solo album, Me Against the World, is released. It debuts at #1, breaking all sales records for solo rappers.
The first song that we heard from the album, from Me Against the World, was Dear Mama, which we had never heard a song like that come out of hip hop. I think in rock, John Lennon's Mother, something that reminded me of it. But it was a very personal album. And the thing about Tupac that people have to understand, he was such a vulnerable human being that it just came out in all of his art. Whatever he was feeling, it was refreshing, it was frustrating, it made you happy, it made you mad at him because you never knew what Pac was saying, but he was always brutally honest, and that's what Me Against the World represented. But he also, again, just look at the title, was speaking for a lot of young black males in America who felt like it was just them against the world. So he gave voice to a lot of people.
He's talking about his mother. Understand what I'm saying? That showed no matter what else was going on in this world, that was something that you looked at, like that was order right there. And his order was putting that writing a song about his mom and the trials and tribulations they had with their relationship. I think regardless of what was going on in his personal life, on the streets or whatever, what I'm saying? It was like, this is my foundation right here. This is my queen, my mother. And I thought that was dope.
Tupac also sets another record, becoming the first artist to have an album debut at #1 while serving time in prison. 11 months into his incarceration, Me Against the World goes double platinum. The single Dear Mama also goes platinum, peaking at #9 on the charts. With a best-selling album, Tupac's making money hand over fist, though he has little chance to spend it in prison. But on April 29, 1995, he convinces girlfriend Keisha Morris to marry him. Though he's already incarcerated, Tupac encounters even more legal trouble when the mother of the boy killed outside his Marin City concert sues. She wins a settlement, eating into Tupac's fortune to the tune of almost $500,000. So Tupac throws more money at his lawyers to work on his appeal. Problem is, by the time one's on the table, he has no funds left to post his $1.4 million bail.
I'm out of money. I'm out of all my resources. Thank you very much.
Enter Death Row Records executive Suge Knight. On September 16, 1995, Suge and lawyer David Kenner visit Tupac in prison. They offer to arrange for his release pending appeal, but on 3 conditions. Tupac must sign a 3-album contract, appoint Knight as his music and recording manager, and Kenner as his attorney. Tupac wastes no time signing a handwritten contract agreeing to the terms.
Tupac was desperate, and Suge Knight and Death Row Records came to see him. He needed some money to post bond. I think it was about $1.5 million. And Knight said, we'll post the bond, but we'll own you, in effect, for some future productions. He promised him a salary, $1 million per record. And so Tupac was able to make money, but you get the impression that Suge, no pun intended, sugar-coated this contract. We're gonna give you a pretty sweet pill to swallow, but we just don't want to be there when it wears off and you ask us where all the money went.
While Tupac believes Death Row is posting his bail, the truth is it never puts up a dime. Instead, it takes $250,000 from Interscope, $850,000 from Atlantic Records, and the last $300,000 is made up through a bail bond. And Tupac is on the hook for all of it, required by his contract to repay the money through royalties he'll earn.
When Pac signed on with Death Row, to me it was like, if you listen to the lyrical content, he seemed confused to me, right? Because he'd have songs saying what he's supposed to be doing as an artist or as an activist, as a black man, responsible human being. Then he had songs of survival, what he had to do. The thing is with Pac, he knew what he was supposed to do, right? From a community perspective, and he knew what he had to do from a survival perspective as well.
After just 8 months behind bars, on October 11th, 1995, Tupac Shakur is released on bail. In the first 6 days after his release, Tupac records 14 songs. The first of these, California Love, drops in December 95. It hits #1 before going 2 times platinum.
Let me tell you about California Love. The breakbeat they used was a popular East Coast joint that was already big. By them taking that beat and flipping it and having, Roger Troutman on it was just dope. It was just ill to see Dr. Dre do his thing and, Pac come out and spit his verse too. And that was like a staple. That was like a staple for California. That was their hip hop anthem. I thought that was real cool, definitely.
To celebrate, Tupac resumes his rampant spending. With his $125,000 car allowance from Death Row, he buys a luxury Jaguar SLX and the largest Hummer on the market, a 1996 H1. When he flies anywhere, he goes by private jet. In late 95, Tupac forms the Outlaw Immortals, and on February 13, 96, All Eyes on Me hits the streets. Featuring his new posse, it's an unapologetic celebration of the thug lifestyle. The album hits #1, and within 2 months sells 5 million copies.
It's interesting. I almost feel like Tupac, with All Eyes on Me, knew that his time on this earth was limited. I felt like he just was like, I'm gonna do whatever I feel. I think there was a sense of sadness with Tupac because on the one hand, he was famous, he was making money, he could have anything he wanted from anything. You can use your imagination. But I also feel like Tupac just was not able to turn the corner, and that's what was represented in that album.
The album makes $70 million, but Tupac doesn't get his $12 million in royalties, nor does he get the $5 million advance he's due for his next album.
So Death Row was clearly ripping him off at this point. Maybe he should have known that was going to happen when he signed with Death Row, of all places. They kept telling him that he was spending too much money on legal fees, but they never showed him the books, and they kept the money from him, plain and simple.
With another #1 album, Tupac Shakur's career is on fire. But his marriage to Keisha Morris isn't. Feeling like she's not needed and worried about Tupac's mounting legal debts, Morris annuls their marriage. Tupac hits the clubs and catches the eye of another woman, record producer Quincy Jones's daughter, Kidada. Soon after, they start dating, and in May 1996, they move in together. It doesn't take long before he asks her to marry him. And though he's one of the biggest stars in hip-hop and about to marry wife #2, he refuses to make a will. Fueling speculation, the superstar truly believes he's immortal. While still waging war with the East Coast rappers, Tupac continues to be prolific in the studio, creating 3 full CDs and over 150 extra tracks. In August 1996, he writes and records his 5th album, The Don Killuminati, The 7-Day Theory, in just 3 days. He also shoots the disturbing video for I Ain't Mad at Ya, in which he's depicted being shot multiple times before dying in an ambulance. In September, Tupac travels to Vegas to attend a Mike Tyson boxing match. While exiting the event, he spots Crips gang member Baby Lane Anderson in the lobby of the MGM Grand and, along with Suge Knight and his entourage, attacks Anderson, allegedly over a beef between Death Row and the Crips. After fleeing the scene of the brawl, Tupac returns to the Luxor Hotel and tells Kidada what happened, warning her it's not safe to come to the after party at Club 662. Kidada agrees to wait in their suite for Tupac to return.
Before they left, Kidada said, something's not right, something's wrong. She had this idea that it wasn't a good idea to go to Vegas. She even went so far as to ask if she could pack Tupac's bulletproof vest. He was like, nah, I don't need it, you know? Well, he should have trusted the woman's intuition in that case.
Tupac takes a ride to the club with Knight, and while cruising down the strip, stands up through the sunroof. At approximately 11:15 p.m., Knight's car stops at a red light in front of the Maxim Hotel. A white Cadillac pulls up beside the car. A window rolls down, and Tupac is shot multiple times. At just 25, Tupac Shakur is one of the hottest superstars in the rap game and a self-made millionaire. But his success has come at a price, and that price may turn out to be his life. Rapper, actor, and icon Tupac Shakur has just been shot. His fiancée, Kidada Jones, is just going to sleep when she hears the news. At the hospital, she's handed a bag of bloody clothes and jewelry and told Tupac's life is hanging by a thread.
Kidada was absolutely beside herself. She was a complete mess. She grabs a blanket from the hospital, wraps it around herself. She's walking around the parking lot in a daze, saying, there's no way he's gonna die. He can't die. This isn't happening.
For 6 days, Kidada, Tupac's mother, aunt, and entourage are among the dedicated group who keep vigil over the mortally wounded star at Las Vegas's University Medical Center. During this time, Death Row Records receives multiple calls warning that the perpetrators of the shooting are coming to the hospital to finish the job. In response, Nation of Islam guards keep a 24-hour watch over the trauma unit. Despite the best efforts to save the superstar's life, at 4:03 p.m. on September 13, 1996, Tupac Shakur is pronounced dead. News of the rap icon's death shocks the world. In Vegas, fans hold a vigil at the intersection where he was shot.
People were scared after Tupac died because people felt like there was going to be all these kind of retaliatory or revenge shootings, and there were things that did happen. We heard about people getting killed or getting shot from different camps on both coasts, and we were just, it was mind-blowing. It was absolutely mind-blowing.
On September 14, 1996, Tupac Shakur is cremated. In Atlanta, a large service is held in his honor, but there's no official funeral. Instead, a private memorial is held on the beach in Malibu, attended by close family and friends. There, loved ones bid farewell to the man they loved and admired. 2 years earlier, when asked where he saw himself in 10 years, Tupac responded, "Sprinkled in ashes, smoked up by my homies." Some friends claim they followed through with Tupac's wishes. Tupac may have predicted his death, but when it came to his finances, his foresight was lacking. On the day he dies, he's nearly $5 million in debt.
How do you sell nearly $70 million worth of albums in a single year and end up $5 million in the hole? It defies logic. Either he was terrible with money or he was just getting ripped off.
And he still doesn't have a will.
If Tupac had had a will, he would have let the world know who he wanted to receive his money and how. But even without a will, it's likely his money went to the people he wanted it to go to. His mom ended up receiving his estate, and we know that his fiancée, Kidada Jones, Quincy Jones' daughter, probably didn't need his money, but yet Tupac had been supporting his mother through the years, so it's likely he would have left her his money as well. When someone passes away without a will, a loved one, in this case Tupac's mom, Afeni, had to petition the probate court and ask permission to oversee all of his affairs. Keep in mind that until and unless she did this, no one would have legal authority to oversee all of his business affairs, all of the recording contracts, and everything else that he had going on at the time of his death.
Death Row claims Tupac's rampant spending on a luxurious lifestyle and continuous legal costs are to blame. They sue his estate to recoup what's owed. But Afeni smells a rat and lawyers up to fight for her son's fortune.
Death Row's accounting practices are, to say the least, very shady and very convenient for Death Row. They were charging Tupac for houses he wasn't in, child support for kids he didn't have, and for cars he was not driving. And on top of all of that, they weren't even giving him the money they actually owed Tupac.
Apparently, Death Row made about $70 million off of Tupac's records, and they have the, I guess, golden discs to claim that he owes them $4.9 million. This when they're buying themselves houses, jewelry, repairing cars, paying for other celebrities' vehicles. Shame on them, shame on them.
Death Row's handwritten agreement specified million-dollar advances and 18% royalties, but not even these were paid to Tupac. In total, Afeni claims Death Row charged Tupac, their biggest star, over $7 million in expenses. She further claimed they owed the rapper at least $4.8 million in royalties, on top of a $5 million advance they had promised for his next album. And though Tupac often boasted of his wealth, at the time of his death, he has no stocks or bonds and owns no real estate, just 2 cars and a single checking account with a balance of $105,000 that's quickly consumed by taxes and court fees. Afeni claims $50 million of Tupac's income was improperly diverted.
It's one thing to claim it, it's another thing to prove it. I don't think Afeni ultimately proved that they had diverted money. I think she had ample reasons to be suspicious. When you look at the personal expenditures Death Row ran through its accounts, of course she's angry, and she had every right and every reason to pursue this litigation.
Suge Knight later suggests Tupac isn't dead at all, claiming he never saw the rapper's body following the shooting. But that speculation is soon put to an end with the release of the book The Killing of Tupac Shakur, which includes a grisly autopsy photo of the star, unmistakably dead. Still, no one knows who killed him.
It's possible that Death Row had a beef with the Crips, and that earlier in the evening, Tupac got into a shoving match, and that this is more likely than not the sequelae from that. Later in the evening, they settled a score that began with words with gunfire, as happens all too often across the United States.
The mystery of his finances, however, is just heating up. Afeni's been digging, and she's found some explosive answers. She discovers Tupac earned $12 million in royalties from Death Row that Suge Knight never paid.
Suge Knight was managing Tupac on fear alone. He was telling him that he was in debt, that he had no money, and he never would show him the books, so Tupac had no choice but to follow along. This trapped Tupac so he couldn't leave, and at the same time it left Suge in the lap of luxury. In fact, he was doing this to other people too, like Snoop Dogg and Dr. Dre.
Afeni and her lawyer show that Tupac's true worth at the time of his death was approximately $17 million. Though the details of the settlement aren't known, they include her ownership of his master tapes, valued at $100 million, and any unreleased material. On top of spending Tupac's money and failing to pay him royalties, Death Row allowed others to trade on the star's name and even helped them do so. Though Tupac never licensed his name or image to Death Row, they let Globex produce and sell Tupac merchandise, never informing him of the deal. So Afeni launches another suit against Death Row for the merchandising rights to Tupac's image, which she wins. Though Afeni has won her claims, her legal battles over Tupac's estate are far from over. Though her gangsta rap son spent much of his life outside the law, in a final bitter irony, his legacy will be fought over not in the streets, but in the courts, with millions of dollars at stake. Hip-hop star and walking contradiction Tupac Shakur is dead, but his legacy lives on through a litany of lawsuits. Baby Lane Anderson, a suspect in the rapper's murder, sues Tupac's estate over the assault at the MGM Grand just hours before Tupac was shot. While the star's father, William Garland, sues for 50% of his son's estate.
It's not uncommon for distant family members to come out of the woodwork seeking money when a rich person dies, especially when there's no will. Now, I know this was his father we're talking about, but he hadn't seen Tupac for years, so he really didn't have a case. In essence, California law had a deadbeat dad provision, so if a dad wasn't around, wasn't part of his life, didn't support him financially, he wasn't able to claim a share of the estate, even though Tupac died without a will.
The lawsuits keep coming. Since Tupac's death, the flow of legal action has been relentless. But that's not the only thing that hasn't stopped. With 152 unreleased songs in the vault, Tupac's music keeps on coming. Beginning in November 1996, with the release of the Don Killuminati The 7-Day Theory, the album Tupac completed right before he died. Landing at number 1, it goes 3 times platinum. 6 more albums follow, the best of which being 1997's Are You Still Down, Remember Me, which lands at number 1 on the R&B charts before eventually going 4 times platinum.
The reason why Tupac's so successful after his death is because he did not make records, he made history. There's a big difference. Anybody can make a record, but when you make histories by saying and doing something that's monumental, saying and doing something that resonates, that lasts beyond the test of time.
Afeni sets up her own record company, Amaru Entertainment, through which she releases Tupac's wealth of material. With the money rolling in, she continues to fund litigation against Interscope for an increase in royalties, against unauthorized tribute albums, and against Suge Knight, who claims bankruptcy. But not before Afeni squeezes over $600,000 out of Knight's death row records. Thanks to Afeni's hard work, by 2002, her son ranks number 10 on Forbes' list of top-earning dead celebrities. That same year, Tupac is inducted into the Hip Hop Hall of Fame. And the following year, Afeni produces a documentary about her son, Tupac: Resurrection. The film grosses more than $8 million and is nominated for an Oscar. Afeni also cuts a deal worth nearly $500,000 to license a clothing line featuring Tupac's image, and plans a Broadway musical based on her son's songs. By 2007, Tupac's estate banks $9 million. The following year, it earns another $15 million.
Tupac's mom, Afeni, as the executor, was a very smart businesswoman. She went after royalties from recording contracts that Tupac was due. She even negotiated higher royalties for albums that were going to be released and said that if she did not receive an increase in royalties to the estate, she was going to block the release of those albums.
But it's not all about raking in the big bucks. Afeni continues her son's legacy by establishing the Tupac Amaru Shakur Foundation. It trains young people in acting, dance, poetry, spoken word, and the business of entertainment. Through his students, the legend of Tupac lives on, until 2012, when he comes back to steal the show. At Coachella, 16 years after his death, Tupac appears on stage as a hologram, increasing the sales of his greatest hits album.
The vast majority of Tupac's sales were after his death. It led to his estate having a net worth in the $40 to $50 million range.
Tupac has sold over 75 million albums, making him one of the best-selling musicians of all time.
He was a gangbanger and an outlaw. He talked the talk and he died walking the walk. He died a young man. I don't know what the future would have held for him had he lived, but we're better for having had him.
Tupac is like the James Dean of hip hop. I mean, he's this person who died at 25 and he's never going to ever be dead. I mean, it's because his music is accessible, it's real, it's raw, it's honest, it's vulnerable. His music is timeless to people.
As an artist, yeah, he definitely made some monumental music that's gonna last forever because he made history.